Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are going to present infographic entitled 5 Traditional and Modern Methods of Teaching Islamic Studies. So, I am Zainida Nur Afrina binti Omar Zainuri.
And my name is Nur Najwa binti Muhammad Shukri.
Next.
I'm Nurul Anis Amira binti Suhaidi.
Next.
And I'm Nur Ain Hanini binti Maisha.
I am Nur Shaira binti Ahmad Kamal.
Okay, so for the introduction, the effect of globalization has been affected the education system to be changed. So the development of technology is rapidly growing fast. So the method of teaching will be different following this new era. So the first presenter would be Najwa.
Okay, so for the first traditional method, which is lectures. So basically, the first traditional method is lecture-based method, which is suitable for Islamic teaching as well as Arabic language. Basically, this method is teacher-centered learning and learning process where teachers are imparting knowledge orally and verbally. And lecture method is teacher-controlled, where teacher work as a leader and the teacher does the talking and the student is passively listening. So this is basically the first traditional method. For the modern method drilling, the first one is this drilling method is aiming in helping students pronunciation skill and memorization by repeating facts that is learned in the class. So this method, which is also known as Tikrar method, and it is recommended for Quranic memorization and other Islamic teaching. So this process starts by dividing students into group of 3 to 4 people each, and they will read the facts or the lesson to each other. So, for example, Quranic memorization. To make the memorization easy, the page is divided into 2 sections. For the first, students will memorize verses in the first section and revises it at least 4 times and read it to 2 fellow friends and finally to the teachers. And he will repeat the same process with the second section and finally reads both sections together to 2 fellow students and then to teacher. So basically, drilling method is repeating facts that is learned in the class. So for the comparison, the lecture base is basically one-way teaching because it is teacher-centered learning where teacher acts as a leader. But for drilling, this method is used and it is very recommended in learning as it is to master the skill and increase the efficacy and capacity of the students. So that's all from me.
Okay, so we proceed to the second method, traditional method of teaching Islamic education, memorization. Okay, we acknowledge that memorization is one of the technique or method that has been used by many years ago. So it is a part of traditional method in teaching and learning process. Moreover, in Islamic education, memorizing Al-Quran is a must and there is no other way than memorize it. So we cannot deny that because Al-Quran is something that we cannot add or remove anything from it. So based on a research that conducted in Turkey, the traditional method of memorizing the Al-Quran in Turkey is students will start memorize from the last page of each unit and then they will start memorizing the second last page for each unit and repeatedly same for the remaining pages until the first page of each unit. And they are also divided into 4 sessions, and each session has 4 months. And for the first session, the student memorize the last pages of each unit. Second session is another 5 pages. Third and fourth sessions, he memorized the remaining sections and complete it. Meanwhile, in Nigeria, madrasah in Nigeria, they use the method of memorization for other subjects than Al-Quran. Okay, they follow the traditional Arabic school by using textbook and using the method of memorization. So the students are expected to memorize the content of the textbook itself, even though they are still lacking the understanding of the content or they are not understand at all. However, memorization is the first stage or considered as a baby step for the beginners. Okay, so for the modern method of teaching Islam education, brainstorming, these techniques promotes broad, creative, and critical thinking. Why? As we know, brainstorming is usually used to urge people to generate new ideas, and I would say it involves your cognitive skills. Your brain is keep working to think the new ideas or solution. Based on using research, they apply this technique for Akidah and Ibadah fields. For example, in your opinion, why we have 4 mazhab and what is the reason behind it? Everyone will have their own views, and this is one of the advantages of brainstorming. It will polish your communication skills on how to portray your ideas, present your views in a good manner. At the same time, um, we will learn how to accept the view that opposite with us, besides broaden our perspectives. Anyway, the effectiveness of the brainstorming ideas is depending on the attitude of the teachers. If it positive attitude, if the teacher's attitude is positive, then the outcome, the result will be positive, and vice versa. So that's all from me. Thank you. Proceed to the next presenter.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Next, I will continue to the third traditional and modern method of teaching Islamic education. Okay, for the traditional, according to the pondok in Malaysia, Indonesia, and the traditional madrasah in Nigeria, they use textbooks in their teaching and learning process, especially in teaching Islamic education. And the use of textbook in teaching are varied from one pondok to another pondok, depending on the teachers and the students' abilities. Meaning that there are various of textbook using, and every subject has its own textbook. And it is normally takes a couple of weeks or months to cover the entire of contents in the textbook. And then the procedure of using textbook is which students sit in a semicircle face-to-face with their teacher, which is we call like halaqah. And then the student will follow the lessons that had been taught by the teacher through their books. And then in the traditional madrasa in Nigeria, teachers read from the textbook and interpret or explain the contents to the students. Sometimes teacher will involve the use of chalk or chalkboard or exercise books and also other instructional materials in explaining the lesson to the students. Okay, and then after listening to the explanation by the teachers, the students are expected to jot down some notes and even to memorize it. The notes that students should jot down are covered normally covered explanation of words that explained by the teacher, some errors that contained in the books and also any remarks given by the teachers. Okay. And then the students may himself read passages of the text aloud while teacher listens, question and comments on his reading. So at the end, the students were expected to complete or to finish the textbook from the beginning to the end before moving to another textbook using same process. So basically, the process of using textbook is first listening the explanation by the teachers, and then a student expected to jot down the notes, and sometimes the student can involve themselves in reading the text in the textbook. Okay, next, for the modern method of teaching Islamic education is by using role play technique. This technique was applied by the lecturers of Islamic studies in University Science Islam Malaysia USIM. And this technique is usually used spontaneously by the lecturers, and it is involved a group of students. Okay, when majority of the students cannot understand the situation explained, the lecturers will ask a group of students to that who able to understand the the the, the situation well to dramatize or to act to other students. And this role play technique is a form of drama or acting that does not require script memorization because it is a spontaneous action by the students. And the lecturer will only act as a facilitator, which is to guide students before the play starts. Okay. And then students who act will try to explain the situation through acting and language styles that can be understood easily among the students. Okay. This technique is suitable, especially in teaching and learning Islamic education because students can explore realistic situations regarding Islamic education. Through using this technique, a habit of helping others to understand the lesson content can be fostered. Because the students are helping each other to understand the situation better. And besides, this technique also able to create a positive environment when students involve themselves in teaching and learning process. Okay, so to conclude my part, both um, both methods are suitable to use in teaching Islamic education. However, role play technique is more better because it involves students' participation in learning and teaching process. Yeah, and also it can develop the creative and critical thinking among the students. Okay, that's all from me.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I will proceed to the next method of traditional method, which is homework. Homework from Rayburn and Rayburn 1999. They said that in their research they said that homework to promote learning, but from another research from Epstein and Jennifer L 1988, the true purpose of homework should be to help the student participate, help in personal development, decrease the parent-child relationship and public relations. While students practicing homework to become better in a specific subject is clear, some of the reasons that homework helps a child are a bit unclear. Homework is a positive influence, starting with the purpose of it and ending with how much it really affects the students. While we know some of the more obvious ways that homework is able to impact a student positively, some studies have to be done to figure out the deeper effectiveness that homework can have on students. Uh, they believe that assigning homework will give them the necessary motivation to study further. But technically, um, homework is one-sided effectiveness because the students only complete their work after the lesson. Uh, from electronics to student activities, each one has many outcomes that positively and negatively affect the students. Although this homework is very old practice, it is still the best of them all. It may seem like homework is a core to student, but there is a reason why homework is called what it is. To learn the material in the most optimal way, students should have to take their task home and work on it. From Davidson and Baldwin, 2005, they said in their research, in homework initiate cognitive and experimental problem solving techniques or competencies, which is highly useful for a student's future career. It means that homework they develop students' cognitive, where they solve problems through homework after teaching and learning process, which they believe that it is highly useful for their future. While for modern technique, which is storytelling, the power of stories has been recognized for centuries, and even today, such as in Hollywood, storytelling is a multi-billion-dollar business, right? And stories are a natural mode of thinking. Like even before our formal education begins, we are already begins uh, with learning, learning from fairy tales and or family history. It kind of storytelling also. Indeed, some researchers have even claimed that all knowledge comes in the form of stories, from Shang and Abelson from 1995 research. Although this strong claim has been questioned, it is generally agreed that stories are a powerful structure for organizing and transmitting information and for creating meaning in our lives and environments. This from we can see in the infographic there. These are the advantages of storytelling, which firstly they attract students' attraction and concentration, where a story tends to have a more depth than a simple example, right? So the story tells about some event or some particular individuals and something that happens to them. So they make storytelling make students focus and attract to it lah. Second, to give a simple examples of the subject content, uh, while to give examples for some teaching and learning, storytelling may be the best way to give the examples. Next is easily and understood and remembered well. Uh, I found a research state that storytelling is really give the students understood and remembered well because where like we tend to remember a story well rather than teaching and learning process yang normal teaching and learning process, right? So a teacher or instructor can um, give or teach or give example or teach the student using the storytelling because the fact in the stories is remembered well. They encourage it encourage their interest to learn Chinese. The teacher can stories about Prophet Rasulullah or the Sahabis. So From there, the students can get the interest to learn more on Islamic knowledge. Next is help them in practicing Islamic teaching, of course. Other than this teacher give stories about Islamic teaching, Islamic um, genre, teachers also can uh, give storytelling about other genre which can be related to Islamic. So it does not focus on just one genre. Next is improve moral and attitude. Of course, from storytelling, there are many characters, and from characters they can learn from them and build their attitude and improve their moral, uh, and assist them in assessing and improving their character in daily life. And lastly is building their sense of responsibility towards themselves, families, and communities, which means from storytelling, it must, uh, it is, must have the experience and um, experience. So, so for conclusion for my presentation, stories can serve multiple functions in the classroom, including sparking student interest, aiding the flow of lectures, making material memorable, overcoming student resistance on anxiety, and building rapport between the students and the teacher or among the students themselves. That's all from me. Thank you.
Next, for the last traditional teaching method, we chose listening and observation. So, listening and observation, there will be a discussion happen between teacher and students about the subject, and but mostly the discussion is conquered by the students. So discussion between teacher and students about the subject and or lesson, where the teacher divides students into groups and they will be discussing on particular topics, and teacher tends to listen to the students. So why why teacher divides the students into groups, because by dividing them into smaller groups, it will ensure that the students, each one of them will get the chance to talk, to express their opinion or idea. So, and also teacher observes the students, facilitate, monitor and guide them so that the discussion is focused and meet the objective. Which means teachers will be the listener of the students' discussions, and they just observe them and uh, facilitate them, because so that the discussion is focused and meet the objective, so that the students will get the right information, and also um, because there are many students, right? So teachers will control the class, but they are not the one who talk. So students are expected to learn everything during the class through the lecture and discussion, as it gets all students involved and encourages them to share idea and opinion. Because one of the objective of discussion um, is to avoid students from being passive. So because during the lecture, teacher is the one who talks the most. So during discussion, the students will actively participate and actively share their opinion. For example, teacher asks students to discuss on one topic, for example, on how to get humility in prayer, khusyuk in salah. So
the students will start discussing on the topic given. For the last modern teaching method, we chose ICT or Information and Communication Technology. So why we chose this method? Because it is very common nowadays and it's widely used by everyone. So it offers technology-based teaching and learning process, and also offers a variety of interesting types of learning, different types that teachers can use in teaching the students. So in in a research that I found, it says that students find the use of ICT more attractive and more enjoyable as compared to the traditional one. And the teacher, but when they are using ICT, the teachers, they must be competent, they must master the skills and have knowledge in handling the tools and resources, including the pedagogy on how to teach the student. They have to know how to teach the student by using the what to teach or how to teach the students by using the ICT tools, and also technical issues and also networking. So some problems might happen and often happen when we are using ICT. Like for example, common example is internet. So when we use internet, there must be some problems happen. So they have to know how to handle it. Okay, and also the school or the institution must ensure that they have sufficient supply prepared so that the lesson will not be distracted. And for example, the use of projector. The teacher, when they teach, they can use projector in the class by using images or by showing videos to the students, also by using PowerPoint presentation, because this kind of method can make the student make the lesson more interesting and less dull, and also time consuming, because teacher will not have to use extra time to write the note on the whiteboard. Okay, so for the conclusion for these two methods, for listening and observation, it depends on each other. Means that the students involved in the discussion, but for ICT, the students depend on the ICT tool, right? And but in most of the research, it stated that ICT is more entertaining and varied compared to the traditional one, compared to the listening and observation method. Okay. That's all.
Okay, so that's all 5 traditional methods and modern methods of teaching Islamic education. So we make it a short and sweet conclusion. There must be the pro and cons either in traditional method or modern method. We take the benefits from both and trying our best to help in producing a better generation. So that's all from us. Thank you for listening and thank you so much.